Well, let me first indicate that Mr. Shadrach Doshani, alias Kenny Motsamai, and must indicate that it was a bit of a challenge to locate the correct person initially in our correctional facilities because of the discrepancy in the names. Is currently serving 2 life sentences following an armed robbery at a Rainbow Chicken factory in Rustenburg, and subsequently the murder of a traffic officer whilst he was escaping following the incident in 1993. And of course, in 1996, he applied for amnesty with the TRC unsuccessfully. And thereafter, in 2007, he was amongst the just over 2,000 applicants who approached the multi-party reference group that was set up by the former president Thabo Mbeki to look at the granting of presidential pardon to persons who who felt that their crimes were politically motivated but were not considered favorably by the TRC. He was not shortlisted amongst the 149 that were shortlisted out of that longer list. And in any case, the then president could not proceed with that project because that decision to consider that category of persons for pardon was actually challenged successfully up to the Constitutional Court. And as we speak currently, the project has since been frozen. I myself, when I took office, and after consultation with the current president, we sought to revisit this matter. And upon consultation with the parties who had brought the matter before court, it became clear that it is not a matter we are likely to be able to successfully proceed with at this stage. They threatened to go back to court if we insisted. So we're still engaged in discussions with the parties. But in the meantime, government decided that we needed to fast track the other avenue, and that is considering all those who qualify under the parole system to be placed on parole. We initially started with the 149, identified them, looked at what is it that delayed their parole, those that had qualified for it, and we made sure that all the necessary administrative and other requirements are dealt with so that they are in a position to be considered. Mr. Motsamai falls under the second phase of that project, and that is looking at the broader approximately 2,000 who were not considered politically motivated offenders. And it is on that basis that his case was considered. And of course, there are many others that are still being considered. But just to say that of the 149, we can safely say that all who were still in our correctional facilities, and this includes people from different political parties, including right-wing parties, etc., have now been disposed of, except about 9 who have not yet met the criteria to be considered for parole.
Now, we're asking our viewers what they make of Kenny Motsamai's parole, but there have been talks, and we're going to go to Eben, who's going to give us an update on the poll just now, but there have been talks about Motsamai's imprisonment because he was a political prisoner based on the crime that he committed by killing the officer during apartheid. But as the Correctional Services, do you believe that it was a political crime that was committed during that period?
There is no law currently that provides for consideration of persons for parole or presidential pardon or any other reprieve based on political grounds. The law that was created for that purpose was the Truth and Reconciliation Act. And in terms of that dispensation, Mr. Motsamai was not considered favorably, and that's how he was not able to obtain amnesty at the state. So what we are doing currently is identifying persons who formed the list, as I said, and making sure that whatever administrative barriers or hiccups on our side that are causing delay of them being considered for parole, that those are dealt with. And this is also being used as a test case in order to develop norms and standards for dealing with all our 166,000 inmates in our country.
Eben, bring us up to speed with that poll that we're asking our viewers there.
Yeah, we've been running a poll on this very interesting case around Kenny Motsamai, former UPLA member, and we're asking you, are you happy with the release from prison of Kenny Motsamai? Of us, 113 people have voted. That's giving us a real sense about what the kind of sentiment we have out in the public, and 74% say yes, they're very happy with it. It'll be interesting to know why 26%, who they are and why they say no. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting story, and one of those that really polarizes South Africa because of the kind of subject matter that we're dealing with. But back to you.
Mr. Minister, the process took a very long time, 28 years this man spent in prison. Now you explained the phases for us. This is going to be the second phase of that process. But I want to go back to the point that you made, that the process, the first process that was frozen. Why was that decision taken at that point in time to freeze the process?
Well, there were a number of objections that were raised against the process by the NGOs who brought the matter to court and, of course, succeeded up to the Constitutional Court. I cannot, off the cuff, spell out the detail of it, but amongst others, it was the insistence on full disclosure and the circumstances of the offences, etc. The issue of participation of victims, for example, it's a matter that we undertook from a correction side because we have that capacity, which justice at the time didn't have, of proper engagement of victims, and we've been facilitating that in the interim. So like I said, we have not abandoned the process. We're still in engagement with those NGOs, whilst at the same time we're trying to reduce the areas of difference with a view of being able to revisit the matter. But whilst that is taking place, we're fast-tracking the process of parole. You must understand that the way in which the parole system works, firstly, there is no dispensation for consideration on political grounds in terms of the law governing the system currently. That was a special dispensation established by the TRC, and of course the former president sought to create such a special dispensation under the general presidential pardon system, which resulted in the kind of was confronted with the kind of stumbling blocks that I've alluded to. So what we are actually focusing on now, primarily, is to ensure that we streamline our processes at corrections that would expedite the consideration of persons for parole who qualify to be considered. And just to remind people that parole does not mean an end of your sentence. If you're sentenced for life, you are sentenced for life. So Mr. Motsamai will continue to serve his sentence for life, but for as long as he does not break his parole conditions, would be able to do so outside of a correctional facility. Would
there still be conditions and restrictions placed on Motsamai?
The conditions are relaxed over time, and they can always be revisited on application and motivation. The idea really is to deal with a number of issues. One is to facilitate reintegration and continuation of the rehabilitation trajectory that the former inmate is placed on. But the other one is risk management. I can tell you that when we took office 2 years ago, the compliance with parole conditions was in the region of 85–86%. It's currently at almost 99% because we're taking all the steps to ensure that we minimize prospects of reoffending once a person is placed on parole. And these conditions are amongst efforts that are made to ensure that the interests of society and the safety of society is taken into consideration as well.
Now, on his release, Motsamai said there's still a number of freedom fighters, and you did indicate that you are busy with that process. How many of those fighters are we talking about, of political prisoners that are still languishing? And you did indicate the process, but I would like to sort of get a sense how long that process will take in order for them to be released.
Look, others continue to be, it's an ongoing process. Others continue to be released through the normal parole system. Once a person who is serving life, for example, has completed 20 years in our correctional facilities, they are automatically eligible to be considered upon application for parole. But parole is not a right, it's a privilege, you have to earn it, and the profile talks to the prospects of whether you will receive parole or not. Amongst other things that we look at, of course, is doing a risk assessment to see what are the prospects of this, because we've had a number of instances where persons upon release within days or months go and kill, go and rape, and then they're back into our facilities again, but at a cost. So we're trying to manage that as well.
Advocate.